All right. Everybody, if you can remember to put your phones on silent, thank you. You ready? I will call the regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Dunsmuir for July 20th, 2023 to order at 6:05 p.m. We will stand for the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll now move into our roll call. I think that one we were having issues with. I can roll if you want.
Councilmember Keisler.
Here.
And Councilmember Deutsch.
Here.
Councilmember Bryan. Councilmember Clarno.
Here.
And Mayor Lucchese.
Here, thank you. We'll move into our special presentation and announcements for tonight. We'd like to invite up Linda Scheiben from the Fire Safe Council. Shaven, thank you. Shaven, Linda Shaven. I get it all
It's
the
a
time.
tough name.
mean-
I should just use Blackwell.
I mean, you want to go, you can, but I get it. So it is your time. Go ahead.
All right, I'm going to see if we can get my PowerPoint up while we're waiting for that. As Juliana mentioned, I'm here to give you an update on, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. It's really our Dunsmuir Fire Safe Committee that's been working on these activities. You know myself and my husband, Paul Blackwell, from the DPAC committee. And we also have Kathleen Shirley here, who's part of our group. Kathleen, back here. And we have Jeremy Ravenscroft, our forester from CAL FIRE, who's a key professional member on our team. Jeremy's right behind me. And so he's going to be adding a few comments after my presentation. I can probably just start with a few things. How are we doing?
We're going to try and share it on there, but we have to share.
Oh, I see.
You're going to change that
I'll keep going.
Could
Yes.
you just explain the difference between DPAC and Fire Safe and how you've transitioned and the status of DPAC so people
Well,
understand?
DPAC was a wonderful committee that actually you all, and Juliana and you all were very instrumental in starting up to really be an official advisory committee of the city to help with planning for all different types of emergencies and doing hazard mitigation work as well. And we were very active for 4 years, and then we just didn't have enough committee members to keep a quorum. And so I think it's still there. That committee is still there and can get mobilized again. But we shifted because a lot of our work, we seem to be passionate about fire safety and fuels mitigation. So we transitioned to trying to look at what we can do with a fire safe type council or committee for Dunsmuir. And we also wrote some grants, and we finally got a fuel reduction grant from CAL FIRE. Just to tell you a little bit about the committee, we're working on the 2 hazardous fuels mitigation projects that you're going to learn about today. We did agree as a group to form a Dunsmuir Castella Fire Safe Council. We're doing that because we're all in this together. We're in extreme fire risk here in the Upper Sacramento River Canyon, and we feel very strongly that we want to partner with our friends in Castella. So we have agreed to look at developing a fire safe council, and that's going to be a process. It's going to take a while. We're getting new participants and new neighborhood leaders that are joining us, but we're always open for more people to join us. We are focusing on education and outreach. We're helping people learn about FireWise communities. We're talking about the 3 main strategies that are key in reducing structure fires, and that's home hardening, defensible space, and hazardous fuel reduction. And we're also talking about evacuation preparation. There we go. There's the slides. The next slide.
There we go. He's done.
All right. And that's what I just talked to you about. Next slide. So now I want to just update you on the Dunsmuir Fuels Mitigation Project. Next slide. Just to remind you, it's a CAL FIRE local wildfire prevention grant. It's a 4-year project in 2 phases. It started late September and it can go till March 2026, but there's a lot of flexibility in there if we need to extend it to go longer. The goal is to reduce the risk of wildfire along the critical roadways and evacuation routes by reducing hazardous fuels. This is a chance for residents to have real defensible space around their homes at no cost to them. It's going to create safer escape routes. It's going to help firefighters have easier access. And really, we want people to sign up for this project. Even if you've done mitigation on your property, it's really important to participate because you'll be in the queue for future fuel projects. The environmental assessments that are being done now last for 5 to 10 years. And so it's called a CEQA, and you'll learn more about it, but it's an environmental assessment. Once that's done, you'll be in the queue for other projects. The first phase is the environmental assessment. We throw around CEQA a lot. Not everybody is familiar with that. It's the California Environmental Quality Act. So what that is pre-implementation. Before the fuel reduction, there are environmental surveys of properties. Vestra is our contractor out of Reading, and you have to have landowner agreements or right of entry permission required from all the property owners. We also work with the city on getting the encroachment permits to do road fuel reduction as well. The CEQA was currently underway, and there's plenty of time to sign up still, but we're encouraging people to sign up now. The second phase is removal of hazardous fuels. That begins after the environmental assessment. That's the second phase there. It will start after the assessments and it'll be completed by 2026 or later. And the important thing here is to say, because some people are freaked out by it, I understand the landowner agreement's a little confusing to some people, but participating landowners will have final say on what fuels are removed and can withdraw from the project at any time. So it's not like we're doing this without anyone's permission. Next slide. So this gives you a picture, the orange area, and there's a map here as well as here. The orange area is
Linda, if you want to just grab the mic while you walk,
Oh,
just so that
yeah,
we can
sorry.
make sure people online and we get it recorded for you.
Yeah, okay. The orange area here, it refers to the area where we're doing really only environmental surveys. We haven't targeted fuel reduction work there. You can see it starts up by Hedge Creek. There's the retreat there. There's the school and Mountain Estates up there. Here's the park and the botanical gardens, high school, and then you come down all the way down here to almost to Manfredi's. And then the fuel reduction, where you can actually get fuels work done, that's our priority area for fuels work, is this yellow. And that's really, you still have to do the environmental assessment and the survey, but that's where you can get some or all of the cutting, thinning, pruning, limbing, and chipping of vegetation. So
it's kind of confusing. Some of it's CEQA only and some of it's fuel reduction. But after meeting with our team earlier this week, we actually have flexibility. Let's say we don't get enough fuel reduction work in that yellow area. We can target some other areas for fuel reduction if we need to do that. And I think the CEQA helps us determine what fuel reduction areas we want to target. The other thing that's really important, this isn't about taking away our trees. We're talking about cutting small, crowded trees, thinning, pruning, limbing, chipping of vegetation, removing dead and diseased and dying material. We're trying to minimize the pathways of wildfire to burn directly to the home and reduce the radiant heat exposures and reduce the potential for embers to ignite vegetation adjacent to the home. And you can see in a before and after picture, we're trying to reduce that vulnerability. The Fire Safe Council of Siskiyou is the lead. We're working with Giselle Nova on this project. Myself and my husband, Paul Blackwell, are on the project. Kathleen Shirley, Kristen Norman from the Fire Safe Council, Denise Willie from Dunsmuir Community Resource Center is helping us, and we have a wonderful woman, Andrea Clausen Dre, who's a biologist and a natural resource specialist who's helping us. I need to grab some water. I have to do that. I lost my other. And Jeremy Ravenscroft, who's going to say a few words later, and Dan Padilla, our fire chief, are involved with us on this project. The point I'm trying to make here is many property owners will be able to get fuel reduction at no cost to them. Dunsmuir residents received letters early in the year, but we want more people to participate. We're kicking off another promotional effort with social media, flyers, and we want everyone to help us spread the word so we can get more people to sign up. And signing up for the project is going to help reduce wildfire risk for yourself, your family, your neighbors, our emergency responders, and our Dunsmuir community. So, and it really will help keep our forest ecosystems healthier and more resilient. You can get the project info and landowner agreements here with me today. They'll be available at City Hall. And if you go on the website of the fire department, you can click on the fuels mitigation mailer and you can get the letter of intent and the landowner agreement, and you have all that there. And you can mail them back into us at the post office box indicated on the form. You can give me a call or email me. There's lots of ways you can do it. Look for our pop-up info booths at Manfredi's for the next 3 Fridays from 10 to 2. And we're looking at social media, increased flyers, direct phone calls to residents. One of the great things about involving Kathleen and, oh, I'm sorry, I need to.
Next slide.
Next slide. We might be stuck. One of the great things about working with Denise Willie from the CRC and Kathleen, they know a lot of people in town. So they have way more knowledge than I do of people, and they're going to be doing some phone calling and contacting the people they know. We're not quite there yet. We could go back. Huh. Okay, all right. Oh yeah, okay, we're good, we're good. Yeah, so the Ford Family Grant, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about, and I think we're talking maybe about it in another agenda item later today. It's a mini grant. The city of Dunsmuir is the fiscal sponsor, thanks to Blake and Nathan Johnson for helping us make that happen. Nathan's part of the Butterfly Mountain Avenue Emerging Neighborhood Group. And so we already did one work party there. And it's all about engaging neighbors in their mitigation efforts, providing info and support to them, and making it fun with a party with a purpose after the work is done. The funds that we have, it's a very small grant. It can cover printing, mailing for outreach, food and drinks at the events, incentives for neighbors. We're trying to create energy, momentum, visibility for neighborhood mitigation, and we're trying to inform the direction of a greater project like a City of Dunsmuir neighborhood chipping program. So really what we want to talk to you maybe later about is we want the city's help with green waste chipping and disposal at these events. These would be 4-hour work events at 2 to 3 neighborhoods. And so we would want to see if the city would partner with us on with the roll-off dumpster for disposal and the chipper. We know the city, we've been involved in Green Waste Days before, and so we're hoping we can partner with you to maximize more neighborhood effort. And that's kind of what Forward Family is all about, is doing neighborhood engagement. That's part of their core belief around rural community building, and they're willing to fund more if we can demonstrate that we are engaging neighborhoods to be more proactive. We're hoping you'll be an active partner in helping us execute some successful events, and then maybe we can get a larger grant for a chipping program or something similar. So who's that furry raccoon you're seeing in the pictures? That's Wildfire Ready Raccoon. Ready asks, is your property safe? Have you cleared defensible space, and are your go bags and evacuation plans ready? So in case you were wondering, this is the mascot for the Paradise Ridge Fire Safe Council, but Siskiyou has adopted it as well. So you'll be seeing Ready Raccoon at some of our pop-ups and activities here and throughout the county. And now I'd like to bring Jeremy Ravenscroft up. Jeremy is a vegetation management program forester for CAL FIRE. He's really key in our CEQA, our project, and he's been extremely helpful to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Jeremy Ravenscroft again, CAL FIRE. I work out of Wairika office, and I am a registered professional forester with the state of California. I've been a professional forester for 15 years, and at CAL FIRE, I handle all projects that require a CEQA document. So CEQA, like Linda described, is a analysis of the landscape to make sure that the project is not going to have a cumulative negative effect on the resource. So plant, wildlife, water, air quality, visual quality, all of those. And so my role with this project, CAL FIRE is the lead CEQA agency on this project. So CAL FIRE is going to be doing the review once the environmental analysis is complete. That review doesn't stop at my office. It ends up down in Redding, where the region, CAL FIRE region staff will review the documents after they're prepared by Vestra, who's the contracting environmental analysis group. And so my role specifically is to provide some oversight for Linda and the team as they continue to design the project and bring that into focus as far as what we're going to target for the actual fuels to be removed. And then also I communicate with our fire safe folks at CAL FIRE in regards to the defensible space issue. And so I grew up in Siskiyou County. Dunsmuir was a place I'd come visit as a kid, either fishing or we had some family down here. And then I spent many hours at the Amtrak station, either waiting for it to come or either one. So Dunsmuir, I haven't spent a lot of time here. We did have a meeting last week with with Linda, and I took a short tour with one of the Vestra staff, and Christine is her name, and we went across, I don't remember the road, but right across here on the river, really congested area, small streets, and she gave me a quick tour of kind of the south end of Dunsmuir down into Castella. And as a resident of the county, but also as now a CAL FIRE employee, it was a little bit shocking of the close proximity of the vegetation to homes, close proximity of vegetation to right-of-ways on main roads, and of course on some of the smaller roads. And I say it's shocking because in the short history I've had with CAL FIRE, I've had the unfortunate chance to see the devastation that wildfires cause. And so if we haven't been affected personally, we know folks that have either been affected or lost everything. And so just a few short years ago, right down here at the Delta, we saw how dramatic things can get in a short amount of time, and how people and property can be put into peril quickly. And so at our meeting with Linda this week, we talked about the Alameda fire and some of the factors that kind of precipitated that event. And the Alameda fire happened just in Southern Oregon, just north of Ashland, and it burned right along the creek, Bear Creek, north, almost into Medford, into South Medford. And some of the main factors that precipitated that were the wind. Of course, it was a windy day, but wind being in alignment with the creek, the waterways. And you can look at maps, and there's stuff available online. You can look at imagery, and the Alameda fire followed the greenway. And any time the greenway deviated from the path of the wind, that would burn up the tributary, whatever that was, and then eventually it would go out because it was out of alignment with the wind, or was either out of fuel as it got up into the ag areas on the east side. And then on the west side, unfortunately, there was a lot of homes and businesses lost. So my point is, the wind alignment with a waterway, or a quote, a greenway, causes a lot of problems, because the wind uses the channels and the landscape like water does in a channel. And the wind will follow. And any of us here can testify that what does the wind do a lot of times here in Dunsmuir? It's pretty dramatic, and it blows pretty hard. And so a fire here in Dunsmuir likely won't stop here in Dunsmuir. It'll probably stop somewhere in Mount Shasta, just because of the way the landscape is. And so regarding the actual work being done, like Linda said, it's by participation. And so community members are strongly encouraged to participate. And like Linda said, it's at their discretion. So we can provide guidance as far as what the defensible space rules that are in place, what they require. Those are all available online. I'm sure a lot of you have seen our defensible space inspectors making their rounds, but we have the 4291 rules now that require homeowners to clear their property and establish defensible space around their homes. This is an opportunity for an entire community, starting with the south end of Dunsmuir, to get a lot of that done for them. And so real quickly, it's the material that's close to the house from ground level up to above the roof line, and then a spacing around the home that provides a means to interrupt the continuity of fuel. So anytime in the fire scene, you can break up fuel from touching one fuel source to another fuel source, whether it's on the ground or in the limbs, horizontally, that's one target area, but also vertically. So eliminating ground fuels that can cause fire to go up into a canopy, but also eliminating that horizontal continuity where fire can jump from one fuel source to the next, whether it's a vegetation or whether it's homes. Both of those are factors. So I'll just finish up by saying that my role again is going to be to kind of guide the council through the project, be available for the community, the city, the fire department, as they walk through the project, with the public outreaches, and anytime there's a meeting where you guys need or would like CAL FIRE's input, I'd be glad to be part of that. And so with our law enforcement representation here, I'll remind us all that, you know, when there is a fire and when things go poorly, and we're talking evacuations, and we're talking people's homes are, potentially going to be lost, it's not just the fire engines that are going to be responding. Our law enforcement folks, they're the ones that we ask to say, hey, we know you don't have any fire gear or really any fire experience, but we want you to go into this highly dangerous area and help us get people out. And so that's a reality too. So we rely on these folks heavily for all things related to public safety, and fire is one of them. And so that's something I was thinking about when you folks walked in, that, we put these guys at risk as well. You signed a paper that said, you would provide public service. It was a different paper than mine, but mine's trained in things related to fire, and yours isn't. So let's just remember that as we move this project forward, that affects all of us. It affects the local residents, it affects the tourists that come through, because at any given time, at the peak fire season, there's a lot of folks here that don't know the roads, they don't know how to get out, they don't know where to go for safety. And so those are all things to consider. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer a few. Other than that, I'll be finished.
And we'll probably ask Linda if you want to come up as well for questions from the council. We'll start on this end with Councilmember Bryan.
Yeah, yes, thank you so much for your attendance, and thank you both for the presentation. I wanted to ask, my understanding is that the vast majority of our $880,000 grant to get this done is going to the CEQA in this round, and only a small proportion, 180 or so thousand, go to actual fuel reduction. Can you speak to the process post CEQA and the time frame for maybe getting funding for full reduction of the planned mitigation? Because we're dealing with each fire season bringing its own threat, and you spoke very eloquently about the need to take action and do this, particularly in urban areas. Analyzing CEQA seems like should be a fairly simple step compared to actually getting fuels reduced.
Yeah, that your last point is correct. And so I do have access to the budget. I don't know the actual numbers of what was required for CEQA. I'm not sure let me let her, she knows the answer. I don't know if I'm going to speak out.
Well, I just want to clarify, there's $890,000 total grant. We're talking about 690 acres of possible fuel reduction within that grant. Mm-hmm. So the CEQA is being done for the whole area. And what we told CAL FIRE in the grant, we wanted to prioritize about 183 acres of fuel reduction. But we can, because there's only so much you can do in a period of time.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question? Or
yeah.
No? You want to see more fuel reduction
directed
work.
Maybe to the CAL FIRE side. Is this a beginning of the completion of this fuel reduction? Because you're investing very heavily in the CEQA. Right. I'd like to know that there's a mechanism for follow-up, and maybe on that note, how long is this CEQA good for?
Right, okay. Could you put the map back up for us? Towards the beginning.
It's 7 years. It's good for 7 years.
Yeah.
You're doing an ISMND, I assume.
It's, I believe we're going for an NOE.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the path. And so it's cost-wise, an NOE, notice of exemption is Juliana can speak pretty clearly to the same thing, but it's not necessarily a lower level of coverage, but it's adequate for the scope of the project, I'll put it that way. And so as the project was designed, the entire orange and yellow area is going to be covered, analyzed for the environmental assessment. The yellow area is the area that's going to be targeted phase 1 for the project. So what that gives the community is not just pass the life of the funds of our grant to do CEQA and some implementation. It'll give us several years out of CEQA compliance, CEQA coverage, environmental coverage, to continue projects. So that would open it up to, if the council or the city or a fire district wanted to propose a new grant project, the CEQA was already completed. And that's important because that a lot of times will put a proposal, a grant proposal, kind of at the top of the pile for grant funding because CEQA was completed. CAL FIRE looks at these projects and we'll stratify them based on whether CEQA was already completed for the project or not, because we know CAL FIRE would rather see money go directly to implementation fuels reduction work versus doing CEQA covers. The unit, CAL FIRE unit, SISQ unit, we were a proponent of this to the grant review team because of those very reasons, that we were doing CEQA coverage on the whole community, but we still had funds to do some implementation work. If that helps.
Yeah, thank you. And
And Matthew, I'm sorry, I get where you're going with this now. I understand that it's also going to be incumbent upon us as a community to be successful, whether we are able to build an actual fire safe council that can independently apply for future grants. So instead of relying on another entity to be our fiscal sponsor, can we increase our capacity in Dunsmuir? Once the SEEK was done, we are stepped up to be able to get more grants, but we have to have the capacity in Dunsmuir to do that.
yeah.
Right now, it's us volunteers doing
And
it.
that speaks to my last question, which is what happens in the future. Obviously, vegetation continues to grow, but I think we can get to that there. I have a couple other more specific questions, and I'm not sure who'd be most able to answer them, but in reaching out to the property owners, I just wanted to know if you had any success or issues with working with the large timber holders that are flanking both sides of the canyon. I imagine they'd be fairly important. I don't know. Based on that, it looks like some of them aren't included, some of them are.
To my knowledge, none of the private timber ground is included.
Okay,
It's just,
so it doesn't go up to that danger.
that's my understanding. It excludes the local, I believe some of the area that is covered by President Fire, the local response area.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So the downtown,
But we have been in communication with them. They'll probably get invited to some future meetings. And the McConnell grant from Alex Carter, who's the land director, and he's also been helping us with these proposals.
Mhm.
His large FEMA grant for Dunsmuir and Mount Shasta is going through the OES process now. It's looking very good. It includes all the large pieces on
Okay.
each side.
excellent. And on top of that, I don't know if Union Pacific or the state, they also have land in Dunsmuir that needs fuel reductions, but I hope you can make UP pay for their share.
Yeah, no, not gonna happen.
Okay. And then I have, sorry to be long on this, but I have one more question. I just really want to bring it up. And if we can't answer it now, maybe we should look into it further, at least for the parts that are in Dunsmuir city limits. I'd love to know how this, particularly if we have resistant landowners, how this relates with our hazardous vegetation ordinance we passed about 4+ years ago, and whether maybe we could pair, we need to enforce this with the offer to help people have it done for them in a timely manner.
I would love to see that happen, Matthew. That's an excellent idea. From my perspective, I don't think, because my role in DPAC, we were involved in getting that ordinance to the council. We helped with it anyway. And I just don't feel like we are enforcing it at all. And I don't understand all the nuances of that, but I'd love to be able to work with the city and the fire department so we could help. This is an opportunity for people to have some defensible space and clean up their properties for free.
All right. Thank you so much. I
Yeah.
really appreciate it.
Yeah, so I've got two questions, and I'm not sure if it's gonna be Linda who has this, Juliana, or Blake is the best answer to this question, but I know at one point we had applied for a grant that could potentially get us a staff person to work on fuel mitigation.
Cal OES has had significant turnover in their staff and has not awarded that grant yet.
Okay,
We are waiting.
okay.
It was supposed to be awarded in February.
So for those in the audience who may not know, I believe you applied for the grant, and it would pay for a city staff member, a new member of city staff for 5 years. It would pay their full salary, I believe, and they go after and the role of this staff person would be to go after fuel reduction grants.
Actually, all hazard mitigation.
All hazard
So
mitigation.
flood, fire, earthquake, whatever.
So hopefully we can have that from them soon.
It's a no match grant.
And then the other question I had, since it was kind of brought up, it's not necessarily directly to fuel mitigation, but since I figured since someone from CAL FIRE and the sheriff are both here. I know, one of the biggest issues when the worst happened in Paradise was getting everybody evacuated and out of town. And I've always just been kind of curious what the plan is if the worst were to ever happen in Dunsmere and the fire was to start south of town and be coming up the canyon, because I know the most important thing for people's safety is being prepared and knowing what they're supposed to do in an emergency. And I feel that that's one thing that a lot of people in this community don't know. So while you're here, I was going to see if the two of you could elaborate on that a little bit, potentially.
I'm not familiar with Dunsmere.
Yeah.
Like I said, I guess she could be
I can.
I think our police chief would probably know the most.
So we do have a fire evacuation plan in place. Got an ambush question here today.
Sorry.
So we have, in this plan is a map, and it shows evacuation routes. We're using, through OES, it's the
Zone Haven?
Zone Haven, thank you. You got me good.
Sorry, Sergeant Ortiz.
Ever since I came on council, and it's been a long time, my big thing has been evacuation route. And what I have learned and what I pass on is we are dictated by the Office of Emergency Services which way we are going to go at any time. If the wind's blowing the wrong way and we are misinformed, we just sent the lambs to slaughter. So in other words, if the fire is burning up the canyon, you wouldn't want to go south. So that we have evacuations planned, but like he said, it is an ambush question. It all depends on what they tell us where we're going, whenever, depending what happens. We can't put nothing in writing because we have too many variables.
Actually, Linda put together a really nice brochure a couple years ago, and we could probably reprint some and resend them out, and you probably already have some.
Yeah, we still have them, they're at the post office.
Yeah.
We've actually done a lot with evacuations, and especially trying to educate people about it. People do have to take some responsibility on their own to figure out a couple different routes out of their neighborhoods. I know one of the real issues in our committee, though, is to look at this in more depth and figure out how we can help neighborhoods. That's why we want to get these neighborhood mitigation projects going and develop neighborhood leaders, and then they can help in their neighborhood. You have to be careful with evacuation plans because the conditions change and all of that, but we do need to teach people what their options are. And it's going to be a mess this summer with all the construction going on and lack of, lanes on the freeway. So it's going to be a real challenge. And Zone Haven is available to us all, but we still have to be more proactive about it.
So just because we're going on quite a bit of time, do you have any other questions? Otherwise, I know Councilmember Keisler, you had a question.
I just had one question. Jeremy, you said that on the notice of exemption for our sequel, once that, the first question is, once that is enacted, then am I correct when you said that will cover any other grant or any other projects?
You'll have your environmental assessment coverage, CEQA coverage.
On that exemption?
For that landscape, whatever your boundary was, for that, that exemption can be applied to other projects.
How long?
7 years.
How long does it take?
Including
To
development?
get it?
Talking to Vestra, they've already begun to work, like she said, in September. It's be less than a year from last September.
But it ain't, we're not waiting 3 years for this. Okay, that's what I want to know. And again, I want to thank you for your service, your dedication, and we sleep good because of people like you, so.
Councilmember Deutsch, anything else?
No, I'm fine.
Yeah, and I just want to say, in terms of the CEQA, we need to underscore the fact that we need your help. Some of you need to participate too. So all this work means something when there's continuity. If you have a property here and a property 3 blocks down the road, you've got no fuel protection continuity. We need neighborhoods together. We need, we got our whole Masson neighborhood to sign up on Masson Avenue because we're all above the river right there. And so we got a whole line of 8 people. We're trying to work on a Firewise community there. Matthew has signed up to participate in the project. And there's paperwork right here if anybody wants to take some.
I am one parcel away. I am not in the
I
zone.
Anyway, I think you could just go ahead and sign up if you want.
Thank you. All right, we will close our presentation tonight and move into our general public comment. This will be the time in our agenda to have comments on items that are not on the agenda, comments related to our presentation that we have tonight, or items on the consent agenda. Just a note for the members of the audience, we will be pulling item 8B from the consent agenda, the non-union pay resolution 2023-11. So when we do get to the consent agenda, that will be off and that will have its own public comment section for that. So this is your time now. You will have 3 minutes to address the city council on items that are not on the agenda, items related to our presentation, items on the consent agenda, which includes our check register for June 26th through July 7th, 2023. So we ask that you approach the.
I have a question too. I'm a little confused, so I'd like to speak to an item that's not on any agenda or not related to the presentation.
So this is your time to come up and give a comment, and we ask that you line up if you are going to be giving a comment, and it will be 3 minutes. And we do, you just line up. So
I'm really loud, so pick up.
Just please state your name.
Mario Urbino. Council, after conversations with Blake and some follow-up conversations with Mr. Deutsch, I started to get to the bottom on our TUT and does it expire, when does it expire? So I made my first call and they assured me they're pretty sure that it wouldn't expire, but I asked to talk to specifically the person in charge of setting it up. When they called me, they said March 31st, 2026, it expires. So they also called up and they told me, which kills me because I know I asked this at the beginning, it had to be memorialized in our law. So there's 2 places we can find it, Unicode and also in the city code. So the main thing about that is if we want to get it on an election that's affordable, we probably have to put it on 2024, where it would be general election and the most inexpensive for us. And if it was to do that, we only have a short amount of time to sell it, to get the law created and sell it. It shouldn't be too bad. I'm sure we could just cut and paste. Now, that being said, I'm not real thrilled with what's happening between the city and the Parks and Rec. There's reasons that California has, now I'm gonna blow it, I can't, what the heck is it, districts. And one of the things is the town has the ability to put 3 people on the district. So if the town feels there needs to be change, that's the way it's supposed to be done. But in the state of California, districts are created so that one person doesn't have power over the fire department, over the Parks and Rec, and use that position to handle the entire town. So the state of California, originally when it formed its constitution, put in districts for that reason, for share of power and that the people would have say. There is no way in this county of Siskiyou that we're gonna see a property tax go through. There've been several that were tried for the prison, and on the library taxes, there were 3 attempts. It's expensive. If the district was to do it, it's gonna cost them money that would be necessary to keep an ongoing district, or the services at the park. The last is, the reason I'm upset is I've dealt with these guys for a long time. It was 4 years, we've been giving them grants, and the thing that kills me is we changed it at the last moment and decided to pull them out, and we're gonna wait and try and negotiate deals.
Thank you, that's your time.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. So good evening. My name is Dr. Jim Berger, and my last name is spelled B-U-R-G-E-R. No relation to the burgers here in town. Lived in Dunsmuir for 20 years, 25 years Siskiyou County, 18 years in Humboldt County prior. I live on Pioneer Way, and I'm here to talk to you about the intersection of Pioneer Way and Dunsmuir Avenue. So if we were to jump out here on Dunsmuir Avenue, go up the hill, around the corner, under the bridge, or under the freeway, across the 800-foot bridge, the first street there is Stagecoach, then there's Standard Gas Station, Yaps is on the corner, Pioneer is right there. You continue on, you go underneath the Cloverleaf that takes you up over Siskiyou Avenue. So those of us that live on Pioneer Way or Masson or Buckboard or the little funny little street there, McLeod, come out to Dunsmuir Avenue right there at that corner. The parking that's in front of Yaks, oftentimes when they're open, blocks our view of being able to get on Dunsmuir Avenue. 3 years ago, I met with Todd Uhas out there, and he agreed that the curb needed to be painted red from that corner south in front of Yaks, and that was done. It took a long time, but eventually got done. Where we're at now, though, is they have not come, the city has not come back and whited, or excuse me, black out the white markings that designate parking spaces. So it creates a little bit of ambiguity or confusion, I think, because people are still parking there. And when, depending on the rig that's there, it could be a big camper or a big high Sprinter van, we can't see squat trying to get out of there. And it's very narrow in there, and it's also kind of a dog leg. And cars are moving pretty quickly now on the avenue there. So to get out, if we come up Pioneer, here's Yaks, we're looking at the freeway, Dunsmuir Avenue right in front of us. We have to ease out, and by the time that we're out, be able to get around that vehicle, we're already across the yellow line into the northbound traffic. It's pretty dicey. And it's a public safety issue and absolute annoyance for us that live there. And there's quite a few of us in that section there that are compromised by that. So I'm just bringing awareness to the city council, asking that there could be some follow through to get the white parking spots blacked out appropriately. Also, would love to have law enforcement keep an eye there. I've talked to Deputy Evans and also to Deputy Woods about it. They suggested I come here to speak to Sergeant Ortiz and kind of bend his ear about keeping an eye out, maybe ticketing. It would only take a couple tickets probably before the Yaks employees would say, "Excuse me, sir, you may not want to park there. Someone just got a ticket." Thank you very much.
Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Any questions? No questions about it.
Really quick, we do have an active transportation plan that we're seeking input on right now for issues such as that. It's on our website as a link to that project, and there is an interactive map where you can report those issues, and I would suggest you put those on there. Thank you.
I don't do this well. I'm Darcel Neal. I bought a house in Dunsmuir, 2022 January. I think it's kind of funny because you guys are talking about fire retention and all that stuff. I bought a house, it was a rental, not well taken care of. It's on Gleaves and Caldwell. I took 60 bags of garbage off of it. I removed 3 dangerous trees at the amount of a buttload of money. And I've been there, I love it. I took a month and a half to build a fence. I didn't know I had to have a permit to replace the fence I already had. The guy watched me build it. I swear to God, he watched me build it. He drove by over a dozen times. And 2 days after it was completed, he approached me and said, oh, by the way, you don't have a permit and you have to tear it down. That, number one, is my crux. Why did he not inform me? Do not tell me it's not his job, because I've been told that. If you can give me a violation, then you could have said to me, whoa, you're taking down something, and he could have gone easily and checked to see if there was permit. Okay, I have a dog, and my dog name is Daisy, and she's the best thing I've ever had. And I am not gonna make my fence go down to 3 feet when I had a 5-foot fence to begin with. So long story short, because I'm not gonna take 3 minutes because I can't spell. I just want you, I want you to come and look at the things I replaced because it was garbage. The things I took down was garbage. And I put up a beautiful new fence. And I've done everything I can to not be in violation. And I was told that I could get an exception. You talked about fire. I live on Leeds Caldwell. You go to Israel and Leeds, you cannot see the stop sign either way. And there is a volunteer fire department at the end of the road. Okay? You want to talk about choose your battles wisely? I'm a small woman, but I scream and all I have, I cannot do a 3-foot fence because the dog will get it on. Okay? Please, who do I go to besides the dude who drove by 12 times and didn't tell me I should have had a permit to take down things that was already there, and it was the same height. Not chain link, really pretty wood now.
Thank you.
Please come and look at my fence.
Thank you.
Please, and Caldwell. Where do I go?
Council Virgie.
So we'll follow up. Thank you.
Council Virgie.
So again, it's.
Thank you. That's.
Peter Arth, 5859 Sacramento Avenue. The topic I lay before you tonight is how important is the Dunsmuir Historic District to the future of our city? I would try to channel Ron McLeod, though I'm not Ron McLeod, but you do have him as a potential future agenda item as the town historian. And Ron McLeod in 2014, when Dave Keisler was mayor of the city of Dunsmuir, was at this podium for 30 minutes addressing all 5 members of the city council, all 5 members of the planning commission. And the question before us as a community is the current oversight of the historic district with 2 members of the planning commission supposedly overseeing the future of the historic district, how has that worked? And the undisputed testimony of Ron McLeod is our historic district has suffered. And here we are 9 years later, after his testimony, which was unrefuted, then Mayor Keisler and all 5 members of the city council, all the members of the planning commission, to say we need to do something different. We need to restore the 5-member oversight committee that Ron McLeod said worked beautifully for 20 years in preserving the historic district. Citizen run, business owner run. And when you have your turn to speak, you could say what happened, but city manager Baines, oh, we don't have the legal authority to do this. Oh, we're too busy. And most offensively, nobody wants to serve on that committee. And I don't know if that was true in 2014, but that's not true in 2023. I think the city's at risk for losing its historic district. We listened to Lyndon Shabin, and we listened to what citizen committees can do, and it's clearly beyond the bandwidth of the staff. I don't hear any vocal advocates amongst the 5 of you, so I urge you to put on a future agenda the creation. It's already been approved by the city, 5-0, but the committee was never formed, and I think that's tragic. The city is going to get money for planning, and it's somewhat offensive that high-powered outside experts tell the city what they need to save their historic district. Those of us that live in it, those of us that are trying to do businesses in it, we know what is needed. So I especially reach out. 9 years have passed.
Thank
Can
you,
we
that's
get
your
back
time,
on the
Mr.
agenda? Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on items not on the agenda pertaining to our special presentation or the check register for June through July 7th? Seeing none, we'll close general public comment and move into council and staff member comments. Does our finance director have anything for tonight? All right. Our city manager tonight had a sick child this morning, and so he was not available tonight. He's caring for that child. If you have any questions for the city manager, we can put that together in an email. If it's anything that Blake may be able to handle for us, you can ask, but I'll hand this over to Sergeant Ortiz.
Thank you, Mayor. So for June of 2023, the city of Dunsmere, where our hours are at, the city contracts for 5,280 hours. At the end of June, we completed 5,898 hours. This month, the month of June, we had 505 hours of service. We had 170 calls, down substantially from last year, which was 243. It was kind of a quiet month, June was. Even with railroad days, and considering all that was going on, it was June. I was kind of surprised at looking at all the stats. The calls were way down. We had 1 assault compared to 3 last year. We did have 10 alarm calls compared to 5 the year prior. 2 animal calls. No auto thefts, no burglaries. 1 death investigation. 20 disturbing the peace calls, which was down slightly from 22 last year. 1 domestic violence incident as compared to 4 last year. We were out with 15 subjects, out with 4 different vehicles. 19 patrol checks were conducted, 3 security checks conducted, 12 school checks were conducted. 2 traffic collisions, same on par with last year. 1 theft, which is down from 4 last year. 6 trespassing, 19 traffic stops were conducted. 2 acts of vandalism were reported, 6 welfare checks. We took 9 cases and only 2 citations, 1 traffic related and 1 in a search warrant. 2 misdemeanor arrests were conducted. So for notable events in the month of June, June 8th, on the 6100 block of Dunsmere Avenue, an intoxicated male was reported to be creating a disturbance. He generated several complaints as we tracked him and eventually arrested him down on South First Street. It was brought to our attention he vandalized the Dunsmere entire shop, so he was arrested for vandalism and public intoxication. And then most recently, July 12th, there was a vehicle stolen off of Willow Street near the supermarket, and there's no suspects. It's kind of a vanilla auto theft. So we got a call on 2 days later from the Roseville Police Department near Sacramento, and one of their electronic devices detected this stolen vehicle's existence. They didn't locate it, but then on a day or 2 later, it's associated with an armed robbery that took place up in Central Point, Oregon. And then on the 17th, we got a notification that the Washington State Police were chasing the same stolen vehicle near the Canadian border. And they were able to spike strip it and got the driver in custody. But, the car stolen here by Dunsmere Supermarket, made it down to Roseville, up to Central Point, and darn near made it again. So.
It wasn't a Dunsmere driving it, was it?
No, it wasn't. I'm not sure where he hails from, but the name was not familiar.
I'm just curious, I didn't hear anything. Did you hear a lot of things on 4th of July? Did we have any firecrackers going off that you were aware of? Many?
You know, nary a shots fired call at all.
I didn't hear any myself.
I think I think as far as reported to the sheriff's office, yeah, and that was not just with Dunsmere, that was also McLeod usually, and Carrick, or in the outlying areas of Mount Shasta. New Year's and 4th of July, we get a barrage of shots fired.
So again, we are not having conversations between the gallery and.
So everybody, or a lot of people mistake the sound of fireworks for firearms, and sometimes I'm sure they're right, but traditionally, typically it winds up that they are fireworks being used. But those calls were way down here also.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Councilmember Chrysler.
So we're 618 hours over. You okay still?
We're right as the mail.
Okay, just checking.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Seeing none, we'll move to councilmember comments, starting on this end again with Councilmember Clarno.
Just since we are running a little slow here, I'll keep it short and just say, tell everyone you know to buy tickets for the Brew Fest, August 5th, and that's going to be my
Councilmember Bryan.
I was going to do none, but I want to respond to a couple things. First, I just wanted to congratulate our treasurer for finally contributing financial input. It's very good to know that that tax measure expires. That is a looming crisis in the city of Dunsmere. Thankfully, we do have 3 years, but most importantly, maybe about 18 months before the 2024 election, and we really need to start planning on how to handle that. Because if that were to disappear, it would be incredibly difficult. So I just think we need to keep that, maybe move it to new agendas. I'm also supportive, being a resident of Pioneer Street, for following through with that particular corner. I mean, you kind of develop the skill to lurch out in there, but it would be safer all around if we could deal with that issue. As to the woman with the fence issue, I don't see her in the audience here, but the correct route would be to file a formal appeal of that violation, and it'll come through the appeals process. We'll get back here, but we definitely would encourage her to go through that. We can probably find a amenable solution. And then just to, I guess, I do agree we need to really define and support our historic district, especially with the economic development block grant we received. And I'd like to see updates on that as we go forward.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Fudge.
Yeah, I've kind of felt the same way. I'd go on all three of them. I'd like to see some blackening out in front of the Yaks, and I felt really bad about the woman. I could understand how she ended up in that situation, so I would hope that she would look for an exemption or whoever she has to do that. We make sure we reach out to her and at least contact her, give her advice on what her options are. And then I also support the idea of seeing if there are a number of people that would be interested in serving on that board for the historic district. And so I'd like to move that forward. I know Matthew just mentioned it, so I'm open to that idea. Yep.
All right.
And then the final thing is with Sandra Hood, we talked a little bit about this. I'm going to be working on trying to get a vets group up and going, and with the specific goal of being able to have our own honor guard, because it's always hard on the holidays to get honor guards, and the ones we can get really can't march anymore because they're too old. So I want to see if there's some young folks around that could do that. So I'll be moving forward with that.
Thank you. Councilmember Chrysler.
I want to echo August 5th, Brew Fest. What a lot of people don't know is a lot of the money goes to support our school, our kids, for scholarships. So drink away. I had a bring for the historic district, yes. It worked back then. I don't know how. Well, I know how, but like Peter said, it is 2023. We need to take another look at this to find people that are committed and want to get involved in that. And the other thing is, I want to thank Linda and Keith, no, Jeremy, for their presentation earlier. And I want to encourage everybody to sign up for this thing because it benefits not only yourself, it benefits the city. So, that's all I've got. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I don't have much to report on. Working on a transportation grant right now that is currently open. Working on possibly some projects that have been identified in the active transportation plan formation so far, but I'll be in contact with you. It's the federal one that we've been talking about. So that's it for me. Committee reports. Did any committees meet in the timeframe?
We did have a finance committee meeting on Monday. The main thing we talked about during the finance, well, the two main things is finalizing looking over the audit and doing the official recommendation that we recommend that council accepts the audit, which I know is item 11B. The other thing we did is we started a 218 review. Basically, the purpose of this review is we will have to do a couple of 218s coming up here, mainly solid waste and sewer in the next couple of years. Sewer or solid waste first, then sewer. The main purpose of this review is to kind of just get an idea for all the citizens of what rates they're paying, what projects that's gone to, and then the other main purpose is a couple of the 218s we've had in the past have, let's just say, not turned out all that well. They haven't met the city's needs. So basically, the members of the finance committee are just doing this review, kind of look at where these 218s have gone wrong in the past. So that way we can look out for similar pitfalls moving forward into the future.
And actually, to the finance director, did we receive any proposals for the solid waste RFP?
No, we didn't. We reached out to somebody that asked us a question.
Okay.
So we reached out to
I
them.
could just add, for those who aren't used to government shorthand, 218 is more the proposition that requires you to give a certain level of notice for raising rates, but they're based off of a professional rate study that we had prepared to match up what are the expenses and what are the needed fees split among all of our customers to fulfill that. We have two new members on finance committee, so it was really important. It kind of came from them initially to review the history of it as we understand, holistically, we've got 3 enterprise funds that charge fees through the 218 process. We know that number is going up because it has to based on the cost of things. So just be ready for being tasked with solid waste, and sewage will be coming up here again in the not too distant future.
I'm confused. You said we have problems with 218. All of our 218s that I've been involved with in 8 years have all passed without a problem.
So sure, go ahead.
So I think it's the nomenclature here. We're saying 218, but 218 is really the wrong thing. It's the rate studies were inaccurate sometimes.
Oh, I see.
They passed
Okay, that's fine.
successfully. There was no problem with the 218. We should really correct ourselves and say the rate study,
I agree with you.
based on that rate passage.
Yes, to be more accurate, we are reviewing the rate studies that have been done for the 218s. Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, any other questions? Any other committees? I just wanted to update the council. Councilmember Brian and I are on
There
the.
was one more finance committee issue, and that's that community promotions are going to be reviewed at the next finance committee meeting to bring back to council.
On Monday, this coming month.
Okay.
Are we going to send out word to everybody so they're all tuned into it?
I'll have to check with Blake and Dustin on that one.
I mean, they've already done their presentations and anybody's more than welcome to come.
Okay.
But I wasn't specifically going to reach
But
out
I
to
guess
them again.
if they've got a thing, they may want to show up. So if you just remind them of the meeting, can you do that?
I can do that.
Please.
Yeah.
Just to let everyone know, Councilmember Brian and I sit on the Sheriff's Contract Committee. We've been in contact with them for a 1-year extension on the current contract and have started the conversation about holding meetings to discuss the multi-year contract. So that should hopefully be coming in the next couple of meetings for the 1-year extension. All right, seeing none, we'll move into item number 7, which is approval of the minutes for the June 29th, 2023 regular meeting and the special joint meeting with the Parks and Recreation Board that was held July 13th, 2023. Is there any comments on the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
There's a motion by Councilmember Keisler, second by Councilmember Clairno. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move into a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Thank you. We'll now move into item number 8, which is our consent agenda. As I stated before, there is a typo in the, there is a fee amount typo in item 8B, the non-union pay resolution 2023-11. So we will move that down into item 11E, new business. And so tonight we only have one item on the consent agenda, which is our check register for June 26th to July 7th, 2023. Is there any discussion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
There's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Adopt.
So there's a second by
Adopt.
Councilmember Keisler, motion by Councilmember Clarno. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye, or all
Aye.
those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I was too
Abstention?
early, had to go back to news again.
I know, my apologies, I jumped the gun on that one. We have no public hearings or old business, so we'll move right away into our new business tonight. The first one being for Linda. Thank you again for your presentation. We'll move into item 11A, which is fuel mitigation support. So if you'd like to approach, if you can just use the microphone again, please. And if you'd like to make your request to council, you may go ahead.
As you see in your packet, I detailed the Ford Family Foundation micro grant. And as I mentioned in the presentation, it's doing neighborhood mitigation. And I'm wondering if we can partner with the city to make those successful events and actually partner in doing 2 to 3 neighborhood work days, green waste collection days, where the neighborhood works together. We do all the work. We gather the neighborhood leaders and the neighborhood participants, and we get them to stack all their green waste. We also get teams to come in and help them, and then we do a workday event with the city. Hopefully you would let us use the bring a chipper and an operator, and maybe even the roll-off dumpster, where we can get rid of a lot of other stuff in the neighborhood that can't be chipped. And then we have a barbecue and work party after that. So what we're proposing to do that in 2 to 3 neighborhoods. We might end up just doing in 2. And so we're hoping that maybe the city would be willing to explore an in-kind use of the chipper. I know everybody's short, I know the staffing situation is tight, but since we do green waste anyway, and if we can have a couple of real successful events, we can go back to Ford Family and get a program potentially for a green waste chipping program.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions from the council members? Go ahead.
I'm very supportive of this. I have one question though, as regards to the use of our public resources about neighborhood selection. Is there any process or need-based assessment or survey respondents that we can base selection of neighborhoods on? Just thinking in terms of going down into the future, if there's 3 each year and the same ones are done so many years, we're kind of sponsoring specific neighborhoods. So just wondering if you guys had, and this is the infancy of it, but going forward, if maybe we could have a assessment for which neighborhoods get.
Yeah, I think going forward, it's very important. It's a very good observation, Matthew. The many chipping programs throughout the state have all that information of the requirements for the neighborhood, what they have to do to participate in the citywide chipping program. We haven't detailed those specifics yet. We have certainly samples and models that we can talk about. This is a test case, and right now we have 4 neighborhoods. One would be our neighborhood, the Masson Pioneer area, because we have lots of leaders in that, but I would prefer to try maybe a different neighborhood. We have leaders in the Butterfly Mountain neighborhood, and we can extend that down, all the way down Butterfly, and organize that team. We've already done a work party there. And we have another neighborhood that Kathleen Shirley is organizing that's not in the fuel reduction, which would be this whole part in the center of town here. And then another gal down here wants to be a leader, Heike. Some of you may know Heike. I'm blanking on her last name. It was our thought that we select 2 to 3 neighborhoods that have strong leadership to test this out, because they have to help us, engage the neighborhood. And we have to have people that are willing, some young, able-bodied people that are willing to volunteer. So the first part is a test case that would lead to a more specific program.
So Councilmember Deutsch, you had a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to answer in a sense what was part of it, because I was there when they were raising their hand. And so the whole idea is just to find 2 or 3 people that think they can gather their neighborhood together right now. And once they're past this small one that they're working on, I imagine that they would be able to then ask anybody else out there and do the whole neighborhood watch. But that's kind of the approach that I witnessed at the last meeting, right?
Yeah, we wanted to start with the Butterfly Mountain Avenue neighborhood because that is just so much material there. We could also do the retreat area too. I mean,
You get volunteers unless you went on 4th of July weekend.
yeah, right. But we just want to start with one neighborhood first.
Yeah.
And have, and then we can learn from that. We're working closely with Nathan Johnston and Dre. I don't know if any of you know Dre Clausen. She's the biologist that's helping us on the fuel project. She's in the Butterfly neighborhood as well. And there are a few other people. I keep getting names of people from the Butterfly area that want to participate. So that's where we want to target first. And we'd like to try that first. It's not reasonable to do it in the heat of summer right now. So we would be planning this for maybe late summer or fall.
I'd like to say that since the most dangerous fires in this community are going to move from south to north, I think starting on the south side of town, something in the Butterfly area would be an excellent idea.
Any other questions before we go into public comment? Seeing none, we'll open us up for public comment. If you'd like to make a comment on the proposed fuels mitigation support provided by the city to this endeavor, you may come up to the podium or raise your hand online, and you have 3 minutes to make a comment. Seeing none? Oh, okay.
I want to make a discussion. I got some discussion.
Dwight Bailey, 5906 Castle Avenue. The comment I want to make is regarding both the chipper situation. I've been on the Fire Safe Council up to and including Castella from Mount Shasta up at one time. And one of the things that we were discussing then, it doesn't apply relatively to this particular project, was the city of Shasta Lake had hired a manager to try to work out some details. He said at our Fire Safe Council, one of the things the city of Shasta Lake was interested in obtaining with this gentleman's help was to get a 12K cogeneration plant. They use these similar in logging expositions where they want to go out in the middle of a forest and they want to be able to get rid of some of the sawdust and the debris and also power their stations. The gentleman worked for the city for about 3 years, got his $300,000 and left all that information. It's not relative to this, but I would like to see with our Fire Safe Council's help and possibly the city to look into that. This would be, we have the material here. And this was our Fire Safe Council up to including Castell at the time. We were going to have to drag any material all the way down to Anderson, of which they burnt. They got the power offset. Where a city of this size cannot right now do that, but I would like to see it considered to realize that we do have area for cogeneration plants. Everybody talks about what to do with the airport land out there. It would be nice to think about a possibility of a cogeneration plan to coincide both with this, but this little chipping thing reminds me of that. So I just want to put that on record that other cities have addressed this in larger scales and there are solutions.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments on the proposed fuel mitigation assistance? Seeing none, we'll move into discussion. Councilmember Deutsch.
Thank you, ma'am. The one thing I'd like to say is that as the temperatures each year are going to get hotter, this is going to be an ever increasing challenge to us. And I know that the Fire Safe Council and Linda, working with Giselle, have really been working on trying to identify a process to make this happen and to do it efficiently and effectively. And perhaps down the line, there will be some grant money available to get our city's own chipper for this particular effort. so that we could have a chipper that we could use for neighborhood chipping program. But at the beginning here, I really do think that the city lending its support with the chipper, and I guess we'd have to have a person working with it. I think that's really something that we could do, and I strongly support it so that we can come up with a process to really clear up all of our area in some systematic way.
I'm ready to make a motion.
What?
A motion to approve assistance for fire mitigation efforts in the city of Dunsmore with the Fire Safe Committee.
There's a motion by Councilmember Keisler. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll give it to Councilmember Bryan, who's a little bit faster. Any other discussion at hand? The only other thing I was just thinking of is making sure when we do use the chipper that it is used by our own workers, just for insurance purposes.
Exactly.
No chipping of people. Yep.
Yeah, I've seen enough. I've seen Fargo, so.
Might I amend the motion to, do we need to include that or maybe further stipulate up to a certain amount for budgetary purposes?
If you would like, I mean, it's an open discussion. If you'd like to discuss max amount for
I
budget.
think we should leave that up to Dustin to figure out.
Yeah, leave it within his discretionary spend.
Okay.
Call the vote, Madam Mayor.
Just a second, was there another
I
question?
was just gonna say, in the background discussion, it does say staff to support this, so it's
Okay.
already, it's in the
Okay, thank you.
staff report.
All right, there's a motion by Councilmember Keisler, second by Councilmember Bryan. We'll go through and do a roll call vote. Councilmember Keisler.
Aye.
Councilmember Deutsch.
Aye.
Councilmember Clarno.
Aye.
Councilmember Bryan.
Aye.
Myself is an aye, motion carries. Thank you so much. Thank you.
As we were talking there, the one thing that dawned on me was that something like this could, if we're gonna do it on a Saturday, maybe that person could take the Monday off or something, so we're not adding something to
Yeah,
it.
I'm gonna let them figure it out.
Yeah, we'll put it out there.
We've got quite a bit tonight. I am going to request that at the council's discretion, if we could move item 11C up in the agenda. We do have Curtis Wright here tonight on the legal services item, and I don't want to have him stay longer than he needs to. So if it's okay with everyone, I'm going to move item 11C up to our next item. All right, thank you. I am
So we're
going.
taking C next,
We are going to do 11C.
okay?
And so let me get to that item.
Page is it?
Page 77 and 76.
Thank you for the page numbers. All right,
76.
all right. So the city manager has been working with Curtis Wright briefly on some trial properties within the city limits. It's Silver and Wright Legal Services. Silver and Wright Legal Services is known in the industry as being primarily a code enforcement based legal service, and they specialize in helping out with receiverships, delinquent properties, and may be able to assist us with additional legal services around our code enforcement issues, as well as the vacant and distressed building ordinance. And so the city manager has trialed them on a couple of cases and found that they were incredibly effective and helpful for us moving forward with our code enforcement issues that we have in the city. And so in an effort to make a better effort towards code enforcement, as well as supporting our full-time code enforcement officer, we're looking to sign on Silver and Wright to do our code enforcement services and supplement our city attorney's activity to give us a little bit more coverage and assisting on assessing these cases, as well as dealing with some of our more problematic properties throughout the city of Dunsmuir. And so I'll pass it over to Curtis if you'd like to say anything else tonight, or maybe give any more background.
Well, I'm happy to answer any questions the council may have, but Mayor, you did an excellent job. Yeah, that's what we do. We specialize in doing nuisance abatement. I work with cities and counties throughout the state, just assisting them with their most distressed properties, dangerous properties, drug houses, abandoned properties, burned down properties, human trafficking, prostitution, things of that nature.
All right, are there any questions for Curtis tonight?
I do.
Go ahead, Councilmember Deutsch.
Yeah, so what is your impression of what you've seen and been exposed to as far as Dunsmuir is concerned?
Well, I've only had the opportunity to do some preliminary analysis so far, but the property that was presented to me, and I don't want to mention any specifics in open session since these would be potentially matters of litigation, but in general, I've seen some properties that have, accumulated dilapidation over time. And what that does is it brings blight to neighborhoods, right? So our good, responsible property owners that are maintaining their properties, having to live next to a property that's not being maintained, that's becoming dilapidated, that tends to attract nefarious activity. Obviously, it decreases property values, it decreases people's appreciation and love for their own neighborhood and their own community. So the idea is to prevent homelessness and transients and nefarious people from creeping into our neighborhoods by addressing the properties that are blighted and attract them.
Any other questions?
I have one. Dunsmuir has a beautiful historic district. I don't know if you've ever had any properties that overlap with historic districts, and if there's any thing you could comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously one of the problems with historic designations is it increases the costs of trying to maintain and repair the properties, and it kind of locks an owner into what they could potentially use the property for. And so oftentimes those become, they don't find a beneficial use, and therefore they're not invested in, they're not maintained, they continue to deteriorate. And so they can become a huge problem because, on the one hand, we want to maintain these historic buildings. We want to maintain the historic nature of our communities, but there has to be some sort of economically beneficial use of that property, or else nobody's going to invest to maintain it. And so I've had cases like this go both ways. Ones where we're able to force kind of a transition of the property to a new owner that is able to salvage the historic nature of the property and put it back to a beneficial use in line with the historic nature. Sometimes I will get historic buildings that have suffered fire damage that are, almost completely demolished as it is already. And, sometimes those become a loss to the historic nature of that property just because it's too far gone to salvage. And so they can go either way. Obviously, the intent with any property or any nuisance abatement action is always to preserve the value of the property and the condition of the property. But without a doubt, all the jurisdictions I work with, they always show me the worst properties they have. Oftentimes they are beyond salvage. So these cases can go in a wide spectrum of directions.
Any other questions before we open up public comment?
Just kind of expensive. Can you give us a better deal?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no love button, there's a love button.
I guess to give us a context, to give us a context of your firm's capacity, how many blighted properties do you guys typically process in a year period?
Well, so we do everything from administrative support to criminal prosecutions to civil actions. We're administrative hearing officers, we're court receivers. So we have like the full gamut of nuisance involvement. I would say, boy, that's hard to estimate. We've probably got 50 cases going on currently, and different types of cases go for different lengths of time. Criminal cases tend to go pretty quick. Administrative cases go pretty quick, but civil cases can last quite a while. So I don't know, a couple hundred a year. I founded this firm over a decade ago, so I've done thousands of cases.
Okay, thank you.
All right, seeing none, we'll open this up for public comment. If you would like to come and make a public comment on the proposed entering into an agreement with Silver and Wright, you'll have 3 minutes.
Ooh, that microphone.
Still Peter Arth. I don't know Mr. Wright as a retired attorney, but I'm very grateful to him and to the city. If you are serious about preserving the historic district, there's a bill on the backs of so many people that came before us. You need to have the kind of targeted approach that you're now adopting. My only comment is already hinted to by Curtis, and that is we have a number of historic buildings that are almost too far gone. So even the best receiver cannot rehabilitate and restore a building that is too far gone. And that again shifts it to a coordinated effort between the city staff, the city council, and city manager, and city attorneys to be aggressive on investigations. The medicinal equivalent is triage. You have to go after the worst first, and there is a possibility already that some buildings, a contractor or a lender will say, we can't save it. So the sooner you intervene to save what we could save, the better for our community and the generations behind it. But thanks to all of you, I'm very grateful.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments related to the proposed entering into an agreement with Silver and Wright? And then is anyone on Zoom that would like to make a comment? Nope. All right, we'll close public comment. I was going to address one of your concerns that you brought up before with cost. One of the things with code enforcement, it's a long game, but there is a possibility sometimes to recoup legal services within code enforcement cases. And so that's a little bit unique in this circumstance as compared to other litigation that we enter into, where part of the cost of legal services can be put on the property owner as a lien, depending on the type of code enforcement. Now, yes, we will have to pay out of the general fund for.
But there's a chance of recoup.
There is a chance, and it's usually a very long game. It takes a little while to recoup that, but code enforcement is a very difficult subset of planning in law that is not, it's not a very immediate gratifying case. It takes a lot of effort.
I just want to say that we've been struggling with this for a long time, and I know that there's a lot of frustrations around some of the most important things, and that is making sure that the buildings we have downtown and everywhere else are safe. So I think that particularly as it's noted in here, that the particular expertise and the amount of work is beyond what Kenny and associates can do. And so I'm fully supportive of the idea. With the idea in mind, we can actually make some progress on areas that have been frustrating us for a long time.
Any other discussion? All right.
All right, well, I'm ready to make a motion. I hope you're as good as you say you are, brother. I motion to approve the legal services agreement with Silver and Wright to assist with code enforcement.
So there's a motion by Councilmember Keisler. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Councilmember Clarno. Because it is an expenditure, we will roll call. Councilmember Keisler?
Aye.
Councilmember Deutsch?
Aye.
Councilmember Clarno?
Aye.
Councilmember Bryan?
Aye.
And myself as an aye, motion carries. Thank you so much for being with us
Welcome
tonight.
to the party.
And have a good evening.
Thank you. I look forward to working with you to serve the city.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, we will move back to item number B, which is not any less important. We just have all of our staff here today to be able to tell us, and you're not an attorney who makes $267 an hour. Although I wish you were, you deserve it. But we
Too
will now
kind.
enter
Too
into
kind.
the audit.
Okay, well, I'll just be reading the entire audit for the next 20 minutes, so bear with me.
You can do it in 20 If you can do that in 20 minutes, you're gonna be running real fast, Blake.
It's true, I've actually already memorized it, so.
You know your salary, right? Like.
Yeah, my salary, it doesn't matter.
No, Bruce,
Yeah, exactly, that's a
And
good point.
The floor is yours.
Excellent. Well, I will turn it over to the chair of the Finance Committee momentarily, but just to kind of kick things off. So at the Finance Committee meeting prior is when Charlie presented, went through the entire audit with Finance Committee. The auditor does what it's a materially acceptable, or there's some terminology that they use. So that went through fine. There are a few findings. Finding one is the material audit as opposed, or in regards to monthly and annual close. So the help to that is to get myself more training. So Charlie and I are going to do more training. I'm going to try and do more training on my own as well. And then also subsequent to that is a little additional time. So now with hopefully some tasks being off my plate, I will be able to hopefully focus more on the audit when it comes back around, as well as closing in the monthly end. So that's that finding. The second finding was the policy and procedures, which we council, thankfully, you guys adopted the last maybe 2 meetings ago, something like that. But it's a grant management policy. So that is mainly in relation to the single audit, which is, as we remember, federal expenditures above $750,000. So the federal government wants to make sure that we are handling those monies in a proper procedure. So that was just passed, so that finding should be satisfied now. The other bullet points, you can read on your own. I don't feel like I need to necessarily go through them. So I can leave it potentially at that. I don't have anything major to actually go through in the audit. General fund is doing okay. Solid waste is not doing that great. Water's doing fine. Sewer was doing okay. So that's just a broad swath of what I do in about 4 words.
When you were referring, if I'm hearing this correctly, when you say doing okay, you're not talking about the accounting mechanisms behind them, but just the health of their fund.
The health of the fund, yeah, exactly. Yep.
How would you
Thank
compare the evolution of your job in the audit? I mean, it started off, how many years ago, 5 or so?
Yeah, about 5 years.
And so have you seen this building? How are we doing getting close to where you want to be?
Where I want to be professionally with it?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking each year, getting an evaluation as far as the audit. I assume that you're picking things up and you must be feeling pretty comfortable now, I would assume, right?
I love that question because yes, I feel so much more comfortable. And then I come to the actual audit time and I go, Charlie, you're just throwing all kinds of great things at me that I need to keep learning.
Well,
so
fine,
I will
yeah.
continually be learning. And so I feel tremendously fortunate. And I go, yeah, I got all this down. And then Charlie says, nope, you got this GASB 87 thing going on. And I go, GASB, all right, I know GASB, I got 87. All right, well, I have more things I need to learn. So I'm always refreshed and rejuvenated and beat
That's probably
down.
why you're doing a good job, because that's the way you approach it. But anyway, thank you.
Yeah. Are there any other questions of council? You need to go hang out with Retta up in Wairika.
Oh, man. Sometimes I want to visit with all those cool cats because they're a lot cooler than me.
Retta is a special kind of person, and
She knows her stuff.
I don't understand half of the things she tells me, but Wairika's got money, so.
Yeah, they do.
All right, we will open
And
this up for public comment. If you would like to come and make a comment on our annual budget or our annual audit for June 30th, 2020. No, okay. Seeing no public comment on the audit, were there any other comments you wanted to give from the finance committee?
Just to pretty much echo what Blake said, Charlie said that the audit went well, it was very smooth. He said working with Blake and the other city staff was very easy. They were very transparent.
We have a new consultant who's helping train Blake, Dave. Yeah, and Charlie had some issues with what Dave was teaching Blake, so I think it's all straightened out.
Okay.
Charlie's very particular.
Yeah.
So, but it sounds like things weren't straightened out in time to be good for this audit, because everyone remember this is for fiscal year 21-22.
Yeah.
So we've got the year we just lived.
Yeah.
Well, I'll motion to accept and file audit for fiscal year ending 6/30/2023.
I'll second.
2022, by the way. Did I write 23?
You wrote 2023, I read what you wrote.
My bad.
It should be 6/30/2022.
Then I amend it to 2022.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Keisler, second by Councilmember Deutsch. Any other discussion? Moving to a roll call vote. Councilmember Keisler.
Aye.
Councilmember Deutsch.
Aye.
Councilmember Clarno.
Aye.
Councilmember Bryan.
Aye.
Myself, it's an aye. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, we got 2 more items. We got this. We're good. We're okay. Do we need a bathroom break? I'm checking now. Keeping tabs on
I'm
you.
thinking about it, but I'm also thinking we get out of here.
Yeah. All right. So next one up, new business 11D, Public Works Building Engineering Proposal. So this was prepared by Pace Engineering in collaboration with our city manager. For those who are not aware, we no longer have a Public Works building. It was demolished on the Union Pacific Yard. So we are proposing to build a new building on city property adjacent to the city pool. And so Pace Engineering has provided services outlined for the Public Works site plan. And the facility and site plan will require a number of engineering and designs for the building and site to meet construction requirements per the California 2022 Building Code. Staff has reviewed the proposal and is making the recommendation to approve the engineering and bid document proposal so that we can go out and go get ourselves a building. So this is basically the planning engineering portion of this. I believe this also will include CEQA, or we've already done CEQA, haven't we?
I think CEQA's basically been done, yeah. It's
I
just,
think I did CEQA.
I think you
So
might,
I have to
yeah.
excuse myself when we do that. I forgot that I did that. So this is the planning engineering portion. Once that is done, we'll actually have a cost of how much this building is going to cost us. Right now, we're relying on a conservative estimate of 1.6 million for this building, but we will have the finalized engineering cost after this phase of the process. Do you have any questions?
What page you at?
82.
Okay, thank you.
How does this particular cost fit into our original projection? Are we on track with what we imagined this would cost?
So this is about right for the cost of that building. It's actually a little low from what I've been seeing for planning engineering estimates coming out for community buildings. But again, we've already got PACE on contract, so I think that also helps. They're very familiar with the city, they're familiar with the site. They've got experience with us, and they've been interacting with Dustin, our city manager, since the beginning of the project. So I think having that background information is helpful, as opposed to bringing on a new engineer services or architect who will have to do the site assessment and have a lot more travel time too. I think that's a bigger piece of it.
Was Paul Reuter?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I'm just a little concerned that it's this high with us buying a prefab building. And I don't know if council's ever fully approved that selection. You know, I know we've discussed it and it's been in staff's radar, but I know that we wanted, and forgive me if it took place at the meeting I wasn't present at when the site plan happened, but I know council was very deeply interested in the aesthetic and overall design.
Yep, so that will come out in this, and we did talk about making sure, we did collect the information that the front of the building, the front facing the interstate, would have some beautification aspects to it. We're still open to what that architectural detail will look like. The city manager and myself attended the Parks District meeting in their building and discussed the removal of that building and the inclusion of an office for the Parks District manager, as well as a meeting area and then a office for the Public Works supervisor to have that office space there. And then they will also be exploring the potential of a new entrance to the pool where you would come into that front building. There'd be a front desk, and then you would walk into the pool, and there would be a new ADA ramp to the pool as well.
Okay.
So we have discussed adding those to the scope of work, and those.
So when I read architectural structural fee, that's, I see site development, tenant improvements, that's just like filling out, they're charging $27,500 to help us design the inside of our prefab building that's gonna come anyway?
So a portion of it is prefab. So when we talk about a prefab building, when it comes to a community facility, it's really just the bare bones, it's the structural shell. The interior is not designed. So when we're starting to talk about building out offices, conference room, some of these other amenities, which we do need that office space for the Public Works supervisor for sure, and we are taking away some space from parks, those do need to be architecturally and structurally analyzed, because you need to take a look at the type of insulation, you need to do your energy calcs, you need to look at fire suppression. You have to do a lot of interior work for that building, and so that is a realistic cost in my experience for this scale of building. Because again, it's not necessarily a residential home that you're building, which may be a lower threshold, it's a community facility.
My concern was that that would be supplied and built into the cost of the building. Often some of that stuff is.
Yeah, so again, this isn't necessarily the cost of the building itself, but it's some of the interior pieces that need to be engineered and calculated for final specs of the building.
Question. Yeah, when you say prefab, they're bringing us a building, or are they bringing us tilt-ups that we put together and assemble?
They're doing the assembly too, is my understanding.
Okay, so I can't, I'm not interested in buying a building that you're gonna bring down the road.
No.
So if you're gonna bring me some slabs and we're gonna build a building, I'm all down.
Yeah,
This is just the engineering and site design and stuff like that.
The other thing too, you have to take into account with the architectural and structural is you need to take a look at the engineering of the tie down of the building itself, foundation work. That's where you get your geotechnical report in there that'll help with that. The surveying of the property lines is another big thing out there, because as we all know and love in Dunsmuir, is people may not have surveyed properly in the past, and there are buildings there. But no, realistically, typically what you would do is you take 10%, 10 to 15% of the total cost of your ideal building, if we're assuming a $1.6 million facility, you know, we're looking at about $160,000 in planning and engineering costs.
Well, that's what this is, right? The 156,000 is the
Yeah.
planning and engineering
Would
piece.
we have an opportunity to sit down with them before they kick off, just so we could get a good understanding of what, isn't that what you brought up, Matthew, the idea that you had some different way that you might want to look
Well,
at it?
and maybe you guys did it at the site planning, but I know council before committing to any, I mean, my understanding was we hadn't been committed to this type of building yet.
We did
At the
during the
council.
site plan,
Okay.
yeah. So that conversation came up in the site plan as, so in our previous conversation at council, we talked about going the prefabbed route and then also providing space for Parks and Rec, because we would be getting rid of that small building. And then we also talked about all of the buildings that we would demo on the site to allow.
We authorized money for that building to be inspected. Do you know if it has been?
I do
The
not.
front Parks and Rec building?
I know
The
that.
very front building, inspected for soundness?
Yeah.
Or something? I
Well,
don't think it has
relative
been.
cost of replacement versus tearing down.
I
Or even
believe
tearing
that
down
some-
versus.
I believe that James McIntyre, the building official, did go and take a look at it. There are some pretty serious issues with the insulation, the windows, and then there's like a back wall that's basically.
Well, I mean, I know all those issues
Lead paint, asbestos.
anecdotally, but it's different than an analysis. New buildings are clearly very expensive.
Yeah.
So, you know.
This one ain't savable, Matthew.
I'll take
Yeah.
Big Dave's word over it,
What we
probably
did
over my
talk-
own, but.
Yeah, what we did talk about was taking architectural elements of that building, if they are salvageable, to salvage them into the new building or to recreate some of the architectural aspects of that building for the front. So for example, the specific style of the windows that they had, trying to mimic that design as much as possible. So that was one of the things we talked about at the site plan meeting, is trying to.
Is it, in your guys' approved plan, was it a separate building?
No, it's
replacing the
all
front?
connected.
So just.
It's one building.
The big thing here is that it was a fairly minimal cost to just expand that office area to include enough space for that Parks and Rec space, versus having a separate building or fixing the current building.
Yeah, I'm just disappointed we don't have that analysis since we authorized funds to.
I mean, there's another benefit of that area can be pushed back to allow for more parking, plus that
No, I
entryway
understand
into the pool
benefits,
parks.
But, you know, I know we have to pull down the building in the back, which is totally savable, but we don't have a use for it, it doesn't fit in the plan.
Yeah,
Every
it-
time you tear down buildings, it's way more expensive to build new.
The building in the back of Lions Club?
Yeah.
Savable?
I think so, yeah.
It's not.
Rats
right?
like that.
I don't even know if it's still there,
The foundation is urine permeated. You can crumble it. And you can't breathe if you stay in that room for more than 15 minutes. The urine is so bad.
I'm just looking at the outside, looks pretty good.
Again, the other thing too, is part of this proposal is the ADA ramp into the pool. That's the other piece of it. That'll need some structural engineering. But again, we talked about all of that at the last meeting.
Okay, so.
Yeah, just to point out, for, you weren't able to make that tour, but the idea then that she's mentioning the ramp, they wanted to do away with the entrance to the pool being over in the back over there. They wanted to be able to bring them in from the front and parking along Dunsmuir. And then the idea would be that you got the pool, you got this new building, and the ramp would go in the middle of that, so that they could then enter at the other side of the pool there and not in the
That's a great
side.
idea, but
I just wanted to, because this directly addressed one of your points at the building, how there needed to be so much space between it and the pool, and that was just gonna be dead space. So the use for that dead space is now going to be pool, rampway, and entryway.
And a new deck.
And there's like
There's like a deck area that we would be replacing and putting in.
And there might be an actual analysis somewhere, but I haven't heard about it if there has been one. But Dustin might have knowledge of it.
Then my bigger question is actually, you know, in the finance committee, we preliminarily talked about directions we might go for financing. The finance committee definitely hasn't reviewed anything concrete or serious about financing this yet. I don't want to go too far into this without really knowing we're lined up. Can you speak to maybe any further investigation, or is it where it was last time?
It's exactly where it has been last time. We've got those two options to do. We've got the quick option or the longer term option.
And so basically from this will get us the number.
But this-
of looking at the two options of
Right.
saying this is what it's going to cost.
Yeah, so once we get a better idea of
I'm
cost,
not talking about what it costs. I'm talking about how to finance whatever it
Oh,
costs.
okay.
yeah, but we'll get,
Because we're getting close with this number to the budgeted amount I mean, this is over the budgeted amount we have to work on the building in this year.
Right.
So we're either gonna have to do a budget amendment,
Right.
you know, so, and I don't see a budget amendment attached to this. So is this gonna be expended in this year, next year?
Yeah, all good questions. We
And I
don't,
know
we don't
we're-
have that
it's a
specific right now.
complicated thing, but
Yeah,
I just like to keep that very focused as we move through, because it's gonna be a lot of money.
yeah.
Do we
it's gonna be a
need to
ton of
table
money.
this item if you're not sure?
I mean, it's up to you guys for sure. We
It's
would,
$156,000 if we say yes right
We're,
now.
yeah, we've entered into discussion, we're supposed to just be clarifying questions. But I will just open it up for public comment at this point. Are there any public comments related to the Public Works Building Site Plan Engineering proposal? Great, seeing none, I will close the public comment and enter into discussion. So I want to kind of just get this rolling. This is an idealistic number from my perspective and experience. You're not going to get a better deal for this. Frankly, this is lowball for what I've seen other things go for in terms of engineering.
Especially with what the lot looks like currently.
Yeah, and you're getting a whole brand new public works building. And I think the other thing to keep in perspective is this isn't just like a single story or two-story building. We're talking about a building that can facilitate all of our equipment to go in and out. It's gonna be heated. It's gonna have the ability for the public works to work on these things. And so it's not a typical even community building. It's quite hefty of a build. So I'm supportive of moving forward at this point. I understand your concerns, and I know that there has been an evaluation of that building. I think it just was not in this packet. But I'll open it back up to anyone else.
I'm past that point, more just talking about where it fits into the budget.
It's gonna have to go somewhere, otherwise we're taking care of equipment outside.
I mean, maybe it is, maybe, I don't know the budget as well, but my understanding was we have about 100,000.
I think we placed 100,000 in there for the start.
Yeah, so, I mean, I guess I'd say if we do pass it tonight, I'd love to see a budget amendment at the next meeting, so people can understand exactly what the deficit looks like, It's based on the building, but.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic point, and you may have the ability right now to amend the budget to $156,600.
I'd like to at least have it at a future meeting so that it's properly noticed. It is us making a change to the already adopted budget.
Sure.
So I agree. I think we just. bring
Sounds
it to the
great.
next
So
meeting.
table the whole item tonight?
No, I think we could
No.
approve the item tonight with the caveat of bringing a budget amendment to the next meeting.
I like that.
I'd like to make a motion then. I move that we approve the proposal from Pace Engineering to provide services as outlined and to bring it back next meeting with.
The budget amendment.
Budget
for
amendment,
the
right.
amount of $156,000.
Yep, I agree with that.
I'll second that.
Motion by Councilmember Deutsch, second by Councilmember Keisler. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll move into a roll call. Councilmember Keisler.
Aye.
Councilmember Deutsch.
Aye.
Councilmember Clarno.
Aye.
Councilmember Bryan.
Aye.
Myself is an aye. Motion carries. And don't forget, we have another item on new business.
And yet there's more.
One more. Actually, this is pretty straightforward.
Madam Mayor,
Just recess.
no, I just move we table this item. I don't think it's ready for consideration at this point.
And do you want to?
Yeah, just elaborate. You know, I found the staff report somewhat confusing, and my understanding upon further investigation is that this was just kind of very similar to what we had before. It didn't happen, let's do it. But there's just details that aren't clarified, and I didn't know whether council wants or needs to do this. I don't know, I just wanted further discussion of
Okay.
what it is. It just seemed like it's a copy and paste, and I'm not sure what purpose it serves.
Okay.
Or where, if you look at it, where things place. There's just a number of details, and I don't know, I mean, again, I did miss 2 meetings, so if this was like part of it,
No.
bring it back, that's fine.
I'll second his motion to table it.
Okay,
Yeah.
there's a motion to table by Councilmember Bryan and a second by Councilmember Keisler. Is there any other discussion? I will just say it will be retroactive to July 1, so it hopefully, I know that next meeting is a little bit controversial with the community promotions funding.
Well, I'm fine waiting further. I guess, first and foremost, I'm not against considering pay increases, especially already budgeted ones for management staff at all. But I guess my thoughts are like, city manager has a separate contract, each one managing their relationship. That's going to be coming up here in a month. Happy to consider pay increases per that contract, but I don't know how, in that one in particular, I don't know how it overlaps with like having advertised steps.
Okay.
For others, like say the fire chief, that maybe that makes a lot of sense, or finance director. So I just want to understand whether we even need or want this, and if we do, let's understand it, because I don't really understand it.
Okay.
Or maybe that's on me, but I don't.
If you don't understand it, I don't understand it.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, moving to vote. All those in favor of tabling the non-union pay resolution item to a future meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. We'll now move into future agenda items. I will say that we do have the city manager review coming up. We'll have that at the second meeting in August. I have the city manager review templates that we used last time with Todd. Councilmember Clarno, you haven't been familiar with this yet, but we use a template form that basically relies on ICMA, the City Manager Association's different factors that they see in a city manager that are good, that they value, and so it's based off of that. And so what I will do is I will send that out. I gotta go find it in my computer. I send it out to everybody. It's a score sheet, and then we ask for comments related to each one of those things. And so we'll send them out to everybody. I'll collect those back and have those for the closed session review. And is there any other questions on that process? I just ask that you guys please take the time to do that and leave comments. What I do is I aggregate them, so you please be honest, because it'll all be in one document as opposed to individual council members giving their feedback, and then we'll have that to work off of for that meeting. So that'll be the second meeting in August. Are there any other future agenda items?
I have two that I'd like to put forward. We are past the 4th of July, and as everyone knows, we passed the fireworks ban this year. This doesn't have to be at the next meeting or any of the next couple meetings, but at some point soon here, I would just like to see a fireworks ordinance at least listed on the future agenda items, just to keep that in mind. And when that is written up by staff, I do not support a year-round ban of fireworks. I would like them to still be allowed in the winter when staff prepares that. And I'll let Dustin know that as well.
When I was living in Virginia, Roanoke, Virginia, they were part of something where on New Year's Eve, they had a big celebration. And maybe New Year's Eve might be something we could look into and have fireworks down.
We'll go forth on the New Year's thing, yeah.
No one's doing it, so it'd be pretty good.
Last night, I think it's called the first night or something like that, but it was a real big deal and it might give us something to celebrate.
I just want to clarify the last item on the current agenda for this section. I wasn't requesting that we have an agendized item discussing the role of the town historian, et cetera. I just wanted staff to update us on whether he's still around participating. We have a resolution establishing town historian, and we have a resolution appointing that to Mr. McLeod. If he's unable to fulfill his duties or wants to step down, let us know, we'll find someone else. But unless council wants to change what we developed
I think if
there-
you just invite him, he'll come.
Yeah, exactly. It's not an item on the agenda, just, you know.
If any of you have his contact info, I don't have his phone number, so
Okay.
I wrote him an old-fashioned letter.
Thank you. I will get that to you.
So I realized I actually have three, and I'm probably stealing this one from someone, but it's, since multiple people in council comments mentioned it, I think it's important to throw on the Historic Downtown Committee creation in there. And then my last one is, and this is probably a fairly large one, so once again, there's no, I think, immediate hurry on this one, but I was just reminded by the woman who spoke today, and I've been thinking about this for a while. I'd like to kind of do what we did with the policies and procedures, but with a lot of codes and ordinances, and just kind of have a general review, look through them all, maybe try to filter out some of those that are no longer relevant in today's world. I know that's a big one, but.
I will tell you right now, what you are asking for.
You don't understand how big that is. I agree.
What you are asking for, I just put a $270,000 grant in to just do a quarter of Wairika's municipal code.
Well, maybe if we could just pick a few out and start with a few, like, you know, 3-foot fence, you know.
Yeah, we'll deal with 5 at a time.
Yeah.
I think we should go in order, chronological order. Let's tackle the oldest one first, because those are hilarious.
Yeah.
Are we gonna keep
And I
those
have
for
to say,
future
if anything
generations?
is really
No, we're
funny,
not
I
gonna
vote we
keep that.
keep it.
By the way, if you wear high heels on the tennis courts in Wairika, it is a fine of $200 and 2 days in jail.
That's good for you to know, Michael.
Yeah. So yeah, I will put that on. What I can do is I will reach out to Rico Tinsman and maybe we can figure out, and John Kenny, and we can figure out a review of that.
Or I have a
We could have a
suggestion.
workshop.
If there's a
where we-
simpler way to do it, I'm all for a simpler, easier way to do it. I just think that there are a few that,
How about a complaint-based system where if enough people issue formal complaints
So we're
about an
entering
issue?
into discussion, so I will
Yeah.
just put it on for a future agenda to talk about it, to flush out what our hopes and dreams are for
think-
analyzing and updating a muni code instead of getting into discussion
I think
tonight.
that's a
So
great way to do it.
I'm getting what you're putting down, and I can provide background into the sheer work goes
I
into
have one
writing.
request as regard Councilman Clarno's Historic District review. I would like to review it as well, but I feel firmly that we ought to wait till it coincides with the work Cosmont's doing.
Okay.
So I'd love to see it really happen this fall, but between code enforcement getting going, Cosmont coming on, I think we're gonna need that committee to potentially be an important instrument in working with them. So maybe
I'd like to put on for a future agenda. We need to take a look at the cemetery.
In terms of,
I don't want to say it looks bad, but it looks bad. I don't know who's in charge of the cemetery, but maybe they could use a hand. Maybe we could designate a weekend or something. So let's put on the agenda to talk about it and establish, clean up the cemetery day. If that's all right.
have you talked to staff yet about this one, or?
No, I'm just,
Okay.
too many people have talked to me about the cemetery, so I'm bringing it here first.
There was discussion on Facebook about some people wanting to volunteer to go down and do things, and they were wondering whether it was legal for them to do that. So there are folks out there that would like to get involved in cleaning up the cemetery, so maybe we can spark that.
But we're trying to find out that liability volunteer.
We could probably, yeah.
Area.
I'll throw that one at Dustin, maybe it'll just be a staff update, and then just reaching out to those people. So,
Okay. Thank
Anything-
you.
Anything else? All right, sounds good. If I forgot anything, please email us. Otherwise, all
I make a
those,
motion to adjourn.
all those in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourn, thank you.
I need everybody's signature on these two pieces of paper.